did some things you shouldn't have done. See, you must understand the Creator, the eternal Word, became flesh, dwelt among us, living the life we never lived. Now we come that He must die the death we should have died. He died a painful death because we should. Because the kind of death we deserve is a very cruel and very painful death. It's like when the FBI sat me down and said, you plan on going to Israel for their celebration, Jerusalem 3000. I said, yes. How'd you know? I said, we're the FBI. You can't go. The Hamas has you on a death list. We can't protect you. And if you go to Israel or you go to any of those Middle Eastern countries, you can't go to them, period. You're in the computer. The moment you land in the airport, up your name will pop the computer. He said, yeah, I'm an American citizen. I said, it doesn't mean anything. They'll put some drugs in your suitcase. They'll have it right in their hand. And I'm in jail for drug dealing, bringing in drugs. And I happen to be murdered and raped and skinned alive. Oh, he said, they'll kill you, but very slowly. Very painfully. So I canceled my trip. I was going to go, but my wife persuaded me not to. Well, you know, typical male, you know, we're invincible. You know, I can take care of myself, you see. They handed him over to be crucified, the Creator God, nailed to a Roman gibbet. And they took Jesus, therefore, and He went out bearing His own cross. Look at that. The Creator had to even carry the instrument of His torture to the place called the place of a skull, almost like it's a cartoon, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha. See, this is why we know, again, you see that He was writing to Christians, many of whom were Gentiles. He had to explain things to them. There they crucified Him, and with Him 2 other men, one on either side, and Jesus in between. Don't tell me that was luck. One to the right, one to the left. When one got saved and one got damned, and there's the sheep and the goat. Don't tell me that was luck. Jesus could have been on the left side. These people, well, I believe in free will. I believe it was possible, you see, that He could have been on the left, and one of the thieves, This was rigged. It was fixed. Matter of fact, the time of this crucifixion was rigged. It wasn't His unlucky day. Remember, they tried to murder Him. And He said, no, no, my time is not yet. This is why when He stood before Pilate, He said, my time is at hand. Now is the time. Now I'm given unto you, you see. It was all time. Pilate wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. It was written, Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews. Therefore, many of the Jews read this inscription, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in 3 languages: Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. 3 signs. That's when each gospel writer quoted the particular sign that applied to their audience. So Matthew, writing to Aramaic-speaking Jews, guess which sign he quoted? The one in Aramaic. And Luke wrote to Greeks. What language did he happen to quote? So of course they're not the same, because each ethnic group had to have more information. 3 signs, 3 languages. And the Jews objected, verse 21, don't write the King of the Jews, but only wrote that He said, I am the King of the Jews. And Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, see, that's so easy to let it roll off your lip, but if you understand the horror of that, took His outer garments and made 4 parts, a part to every soldier, and also the tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece. So they said to one another, let us not tear it, but cast lots for it, to decide whose it shall be. Now, was that just a free will decision on the part of the soldier. It just was, it happened, you know, it happened. Would you read what it says? This happened in order to fulfill Scripture, written 1,000 years before this ever happened. What do you mean? Somebody predicted that the soldiers would actually gamble for, yeah. You mean that kind of minute prophecy? Yes. Then if it was predicted, then it was certain. It wasn't iffy. It was not possible they didn't gamble, because if they had decided not to gamble, then the Bible would be proven to be false, because it had false prophecy. That's why prophecy in the Old Testament, as I have in my book, The Nature and Extent of God's Knowledge, begins with, know of a certainty. Behold, it shall certainly come pass. So someone one time asked me, well, Bible prophecy, is God guessing what might happen given an infinite number? I said, no. Prophecy is what is going to happen, certainly, because God has decreed it from all eternity, and He has fixed it, set it in concrete. This is an example. This was to fulfill the Scripture. They divided my outer garments among them, and my clothing they cast lots. Therefore, the soldiers did these things. In other words, you'd either have to say, their free will was violated. What happened to their free will? You've got to understand, biblical authors were not following Greek philosophy. They weren't interested in Plato and Socrates and the others. They were not interested in them all. What they knew was this: there's one true living God, maker of heaven and earth, and He's in control of what is. He can tell you the name of the king centuries before the king is around. It says, Cyrus. He can give you the minutiae of the crucifixion. Guess how many Old Testament prophecies were fulfilled the day Christ died? Let that sink in. 33. 33. Well, it was lucky. It was the roll of the... It's not roll of the dice, a cosmic crap game up against the wall of the universe. No. This is why it says it was fulfilled. Look in verse 28. Knowing that all things had already been accomplished to fulfill Scripture. The fulfillment of Scripture forever rules out the idea that the universe is based on contingency, chance, and luck. They could not have done otherwise. This was to fulfill Scripture. Verse 30, when Jesus had received the sour wine, He said, Telestai. Now, the other gospel accounts tell us that He shouted it with a loud voice. So Jesus went out with the shout of victory, not the wimp of defeat. So don't have the picture of poor Jesus, He's up there now. Oh, I've been crucified. Mama! Don't be getting a wussy Jesus. This is the Jesus who died the death you should have died, who went to hell on the cross, and when He said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He was forsaken because that was to be your punishment and my punishment. We had done enough to tick God off. We had said, get out of my life. Notice people do that all the time.